I want to share a message with people who truly care about this world, because for one, at least I try my best to care about this world and all that is good. And I make a lot of heartfelt messages. I spend days and many, many hours, even late into the night, working on documentaries, working on books, working on all sorts of materials, even going so far as to get involved with local universities, doing local events, getting together with people, growing food. I mean, you name it. The amount of things that I have done, even going up to our neighbors and setting up potlucks and setting up get-togethers and block parties or whatever, to spread the message is amazing. Reaching out to content creators, trying to find their email, even though they have no, comment section or they don't even read their own comments. I mean, doing everything in my power to share information that I currently see is merely not present. And realizing that that information is also extremely difficult to share due to the nature of it. And I run into a lot of people who are fixated, right? They want to talk about one particular thing, or they want to attack one particular thing. And that's not who I am. In fact, I want to open up the conversation. I want all my material, everything I've ever done, to be more of a debate, something that really opens up people's horizons to say, what is possible? Wait, what I thought may not be true. I mean, this is the essence of how we begin to learn, how we begin to open our minds and receive new information, right? To know we know nothing. This is the sense of humility, and it ties into my video I did on the nature of the ego. So I don't want to make this a long video, because I've spent countless times and minutes and hours, like I said, detailing the problem, the solutions. And yes, there are solutions, and they're repeatable throughout history. Nonviolent resistance, civil disobedience, just saying no, although we may distract ourselves and pull ourselves towards so many different ends. And although we may look down the problems and fall into a rabbit hole because we found out, wait, what about this? Wait, what about that? What about that? And we have new problems rising to the surface, and negative press gets more attention, and the media wants to grab onto people's fears and grab onto their instincts and get people reactionary and show you what's happening every single day and get you prepared for the future, or focused on the past and having to return to some utopian ideal. I simply want you to be yourself. And so the message is so radically simple, and radical actually means from the roots. But it's seen as radical because it's different from the mainstream, or from what many people may be talking about. See, I may forever struggle to share what literally every caring content creator ignores. Okay, there are those creators who genuinely care and have no ego and love to share a message, and this video is for you. And maybe you're a new content creator, or maybe you're just trying to live your life and you want to share a message, and you are sharing a message with those you love, your friends, your family, your neighbors, just like I am, in different ways, right? It's all beautiful, and I thank you for your openness. But the concept of man-made authority is what precisely my channel has often been about. And of course, deconstructing all the identities, all the labels we throw on ourselves, we can add on to that. But this one idea of man-made authority really ties in to all the identities, and the worst one, you can say. And I say that because of democide, the top cause of unnatural death. I say that because of the aggregation of evil, which is done when you value certain people over other people. I say that when there's so many social causes around doing what's good for other people, people in a lower status, people who don't have as much money, people who are struggling, yet if we aren't able to treat the problem and really introduce the solutions that can create a bountiful, better world, what are we doing, right? We'll have endless content treating the problem, and we may look like the victors and the saviors, but we're not actually fixing the problem. Just like the politician who goes into office and changes the law or removes the law, what if that shouldn't have happened in the first place, right? We celebrate, oh my gosh, we got rid of it. It shouldn't have been there. What caused it to get there in the first place? Unless we ask that question, it'll just happen again. I want to teach man how to fish and not just give him a fish, as the ancient saying goes, right? There's nothing new under the sun. What I've been saying is a shared spiritual teaching throughout all the traditions. It's the golden rule. It's do no harm. It's the non-aggression principle. And it's been said it's many different ways through many different people and cultures and languages. It transcends because it's universal and timeless, yet it is not seen. It is overlooked because of this mere superstition that we hold, just as we did in the 1800s, that certain people have more rights than other people, but yet we all are just people. And as simple as that is, it is not necessarily easy to share, because some may say it's too complicated to look into, or even too simplistic to look into, and overall just something to disregard, because they say, well, without it, and, well, all their fears get in the way of actually looking at this problem that I simply want to share as a potential big problem. Man-made authority, also known as statism, okay? The belief that somebody has the moral right to do wrong. Many people have talents and abilities other people don't have. And many people, I would call them leaders because they are fantastic and I would love to follow them. And I think they're a great example to the world. Although the best leaders, I would argue, would help other people become their own leader. The problem of authority is not leadership, as I differentiate the two. Authority proclaims that certain beings, by vested authority, by vested having certain titles, positions, outfits, by certain rituals, can do an immoral action and can be perceived as moral for having done so, if not necessary and totally righteous upon the people who cannot commit the same action. And so there's many ways to share this, and I also talk about it through the lens of gangs and mafias. Well, they also claim certain territory as their own. They have certain victims, but the average public perceives them as immoral for having done so. Whereas when it comes to government, they proclaim ownership over certain parts of land. It's a big organization. The problem is people perceive them as moral for having done so. There's a difference in perception, and that difference in perception contributes to all evil because people turn off their brains, they turn off their conscience, and they just do what they're told because an authority says so, because certain people are perceived to do wrong, but yet are seen as right. It is very basic, yet overlooked. And it is responsible for countless problems because when you remove that autonomy and that individual responsibility, you're also removing health with it. You're removing economy with it. You're removing all aspects of society within. And you want to know why? It's because government claims control over all of it. And in order for government to maintain their control, then they need to control these other aspects, such as the food supply and the media. It needs to support that narrative. Otherwise, they will not persist. They need indoctrination for it to continue. And indoctrination requires that people ignore it and overlook it and don't pay attention to something that can be really obvious in front of their face. And if you start that at a very young age, it is extremely difficult for somebody like me to say that you have been indoctrinated and that you need to pay attention to your own mindset and that you are the problem. And it's very difficult to admit to that. It is a spiritual problem. It is a psychological problem because it requires going deeper into where are the problems really stemming from in this world? What causes us to judge others, to have expectations, to fall to ideology and attachments and saying we're right and everybody else is wrong? These all tie in, right? But this idea of authority really puts the cherry on top because it makes an individual invulnerable to criticism. It makes an individual actually psychopathic. It actually, if that individual is already psychopathic, ever more tyrannical. And it's never that one person, it's always the millions that follow. So, I can say that people are ignorant of this very obvious problem, but their ignorance is not their fault. And, in some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. There's a lot of nuance, which makes it also very hard to navigate. And there are some content creators who recognize this, but there's very few right now. I would recommend them. I'll put them in the description. Larken Rose, Derek Bros, just happens to rhyme, Mark Passio, right? These are some that I credit. And there's others who talk about it, maybe in different ways, like I mentioned. But I give credit to these three in particular. There's not many out there who really hone in on that problem and share why this is such an important thing to look at. And now, I have a medical project sharing it from another perspective. I have a permaculture project sharing it from an economic perspective. Why is it that when people are not free, they are unhealthy and they can't trade with one another? Well, no wonder, right? The world of man is proclaiming to be God. And through technology, that can continue, that can grow. And one can only continue to spread that message nonstop, as I have, and hope that somebody with a bigger following can start to catch on. And you can say, well, aren't there many things that people don't talk about? Well, nothing as grand as this. Just being blunt with you. I will say it till the end of time, right? To not have another World War III occur. To not have another war that of many innocent people who believe they're doing good and instead they're doing the most amount of evil. Nothing as against the tide as this, because it's beyond every ideology. People say you got to look at this certain group of people, this culture, and their ego hardens into certain ideas. I'm like, let's look beyond all of it, right? What is these systems? They don't need to exist in the very first place. But unless we open our minds to that possibility, we never see it. We're never really going to become enlightened, as the many different spiritual teachers throughout the ages have shared with us. And it's much easier to look at the spiritual teachings as something that really just helps our personal lives, but does not affect the social systems we live in. We say these social systems have always been here, just like we did with slavery. And look what happened to that institution, right? We said it was, a institution that was part of life and that without it, the economy would not function. My goodness. Well, what if we are not challenging certain things today? I mean, just an idea, right? And what are those origins? What are the mindsets that took place then? Oh, it just so happens they're all coincidentally the same or very similar to this idea of man-made authority, which still exists with government today. And then we wonder why there still is bombing and oppression and how this could have happened. Oh my gosh, how did that happen? Oh my gosh. People are going to be continuously asking themselves that question. Mass scale events, mass war. How does that happen? Right? The individual things, we can understand this person was taking drugs, this person was abusive, this person had this trauma. Yeah, we can understand. Mass events, oh, I don't know how this happened. How did this happen? Oh my gosh. Oh, it must be that one person in power who gave the order. Let's ignore everything else that led up to that point. Let's ignore the rhetoric that person used, which literally lured everybody in and said, yeah, he's saying something true. We got to listen to him. We got to follow him. It's this precise deception. It lures people in and they don't know how to escape it. So it's a struggle, not just to share, it's a struggle to get out of it. It requires shadow work. It requires getting into our soul, especially as AI rises, to realize who we really are. We are under a mass psychosis, a mass confusion of not knowing who we are. And it is no wonder, because we create positions and identities and titles in man that don't actually exist in nature. And we play by words and we attach the words and we view them on the internet and we attack other people's words when they're just projections onto reality or descriptions of reality, but not reality itself. We are living in an artificial world. And because we are surrounded by it, we cannot see it's artificial. So that's why I say nature is the answer. That's why I say nature is the only authority that should be followed and not man. That's why I say nature is equated to God or truth, these things that other people worship and say they lead their lives by. Because the world has always been here, in nature, and natural medicine, and natural law, and natural rights. These ideas free us and help us expand our horizons and help us challenge the status quo and challenge the man-made systems. and they help us return to something that makes us much more fulfilled in life, rather than attaching to all the endless symptom management, all the quick pleasures, all the quick fixes that aren't actual long-term solutions. So you care, you're a content creator who does great work, thank you for what you do. But just like anybody, can we do better? We absolutely can.